All right, so this should be our PhD in Technical HCI Office Hours. This is the 2023. This is the 5th year we've been doing this. And so this year, we have a couple of new friends as usual. So we're going to start with a quick round of introductions, and then we will go over some of the important questions that many people have right now thinking about applying for PhDs. And I'll be the moderator. So I'm Michael Nebeling, your host and moderator today. I'm a professor, associate professor in the School of Information at the University of Michigan. I work on augmented and virtual reality. And then Sam, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm Sam Reig, an assistant professor at the University of Massachusetts Lowell in computer science. I also am an HCI, of course, and I work on human-robot interaction, how to design behaviors for social robots, for service robots, and how to design for complex settings, so multiple people and multiple devices.
Super cool. All right, then we have Tianshi here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tianshi Li. I am currently a postdoc at UC Berkeley, and I will start as an assistant professor at Northeastern University in the Khoury College of Computer Sciences from next year. So I'm looking for a PhD student for this cycle. My research interest is at the intersection of HCI, privacy, and software engineering. So I'm interested in understanding why people build apps that have privacy issues and how to help developers build more privacy-preserving app. And also for general users, how can we help them cope with these emerging privacy risks in novel technologies like large language models, and also how to use these technologies to help people build better apps. Yeah.
Super cool. All right, maybe there are some PhD students here already, so that's why we're here. Then, Maitraye, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Maitraye. I'm currently an assistant professor at Khoury College of Computer Sciences and College of Arts, Media, and Design at Northeastern University. So my research is about accessibility, particularly focusing on how to make collaboration, content creation, and learning more accessible and equitable for people with disabilities. I've done a series of work with blind and low vision people and neurodivergent people, and also currently recruiting PhD students for this upcoming fall cycle in 2024.
That's good. Okay, so we're all here and wanting. That's great. So, Karan, hello.
Yeah, sure. Hey, folks, I'm Karan. I'm currently a visiting faculty researcher at Google, and I'll be joining Northwestern University as an incoming assistant professor this coming fall. I'll also be recruiting students and I work on machine learning and sensing for interaction techniques and ubiquitous computing.
All right, super cool. And then Yukang, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Yukang. I'm wrapping up my postdoc at Carnegie Mellon University, and I will be joining University of Rochester Department of Computer Science in next January. So I'm interested in understanding and modeling user behaviors while they're interacting with like AR/VR interfaces, including the motion behaviors, like how we move our arms or our hands while selecting something, or also the cognitive and perceptual patterns, like how I estimate the distance or the depth of a target based on different sensory cues. Yeah, based on that, I implement some interaction techniques to facilitate the users in completing the different tasks. I'm also recruiting students for next fall.
All right, this is great. Okay, so I think we introduced all the faculty that joined today. So we have a broad range: security, privacy, interaction techniques, software engineering, human-robot interaction. You name it. There is probably a common theme: HCI, human-computer interaction, and so most of us also have done. All of us have done PhDs in. Some of us have done them in really good places, like Carnegie Mellon. Others are from ETH Zurich. Like that's where I did my PhD in, and then Tsinghua also we have represented here, so really good. Okay, so we want to collaboratively go through some of your questions and answer them. So thanks. So I've divided this into 3 to 4 blocks. So I think it's 3 blocks. First, we want to spend a little bit more time on application materials. So there's always a theme on questions. And I don't want to go about the like specific statements, but I do wonder, some of you have obviously reviewed and been on committees and stuff. So it's probably interesting for our students to hear what is the most important type of material, like where do you extract the most signal? Is it, so we have like questions hearing about the TOEFL scores and like other kinds of assessments that they need to provide, but like in terms of application materials, what is the single most important signal that you're looking for, like, and where do you get it? Like, is it the research statement? Is it the personal statement? So this is to kick this off. What is most important to you? What would you like to read in a statement for you to determine? Is it, for me, for example, just to give an example, for me, it's the technical skills. I'm interested in the technical skills, but not only that, but how students are interested in combining this with critical aspects. So how can humans actually benefit from this? And what is not important to me, just to get this out of the way, is to lead with a number of publications that you may have worked on. This is often a fear that students feel like you have to have this kind of stuff. It's like nice, but it's not required, and it's and really is not a good signal, to be honest, because I don't know how much was really like like your own contribution to these publications. And I would also say that I would like to see something that there is sincere interest and research interest. So that maybe through a thesis or something. I'm currently working on this research project. So these are some things I look for. What else would you add to this list that makes you help decisions whether somebody should be admitted?
So I can add something. So I will definitely look for research experiences. So like across all these materials, I want to look for examples that show this candidate has good research experiences, and no matter in which kind of which type of research. So I personally feel like I can work with people who have mixed method research experiences or technical research building system, but I want to see like there is concrete examples. So maybe I'll usually start with the CV because that's like the most structured part of the material, and I will just look through it. And if they have publication, then that's good. But I will also look into any just research experiences, internship, research assistantship they have done in the past. And that's usually just giving me very high level information. Like even if they have like a publication or even they publish at very good conferences and first author, it's also not hard to, it's also hard to tell what exactly did they do. So I will also look into the research statement and see which part of the project did they contribute to, and whether they have kind of improve themselves over the entire process. Like if they have done multiple projects, have they undertake different roles, learn different skills. And also definitely I will learn that from the recommendation letter as well, because that's from a more senior individual's perspective. So especially if that's the person I trust. So I think it's like I will look at all these materials together to try to establish some more evidence regarding this person's research capacity. Yeah.
Sounds good. Does anybody want to add anything? Sam, what do you think? Oh, sorry, Karan. Okay, I was about to pick Sam.
Sure, Sam, if you want to go, if you have some thoughts, we can go after.
You can go first. I'll jump in after you.
Sounds good. The other thing I especially look for is sort of research alignment as well. So I guess it kind of depends the school that you're going to. There are some schools which have a central admission process, and Carnegie Mellon sort of falls into that bucket, right? Where you send in your application, then a group of faculty that are on an admissions committee look at it, and that's sort of a holistic review of like, what is this candidate? How well will they perform? Not with just one faculty or with the department or multiple faculties. And they have different candidates, faculties that they can work with. And the other model is, for example, where a single faculty is like, okay, I really want this student and there's high alignment, so I'm going to make a case for the student. So if you're sort of like targeting the school like that, then you make sure that there is some alignment with the faculty. And the other thing that I look for is when you have published, clearly building up on Tianshi's point, stating what you have done, right? Like what skills did you learn with that? And how do you want to use those skills for future research projects is something that is very interesting to me when I pick candidates.
Yeah, good point, Sam.
Yeah, so I'll echo everything that's been said, particularly the point about emphasizing what it is that you did if you've been part of a paper, even if it's one that is in submission or even in preparation. Speaking to your own contributions to what the team is doing is really important because, as Michael said at the beginning, authorship means different things in different places and for different teams, and it's really much more important to know what your contribution was to the project. If you don't have any publication experience, same thing, right? I don't think you have to have publications to make an excellent case for yourself as a PhD, potential PhD student. So in that case, same goes if you're describing research that you did that started as a class project and evolved beyond that. Explaining your contributions to the project is still really important. If you've worked with a professor on research and it hasn't led to a publication, talk about the team that you worked with, or if you did it on your own, what your specific activities were. I also want to comment on the alignment point, emphasize that I think that's really important. It's something that I'll be looking for, most HCI professors will be looking for. What's even more important than the specific topic that you choose to describe, to me at least, assuming it is generally in a space that I'm interested in, is your ability to describe your interest in research in general, right? And your understanding of the research process, and to send honest signals of your desire to do research in HCI. And that's because people shift topics, people work with faculty who aren't their advisors sometimes. But what's really important, what you really need to show going in, is that you have the context and the understanding of what it means to do research in graduate school, and to be able to articulate your enthusiasm for that, with a project or a topic serving as the route through which you show that.
All right. Anybody want to add anything? I have some more specific follow-ups. Maybe I mixed those questions in. So one question is, I like that one. So it was it's extracted from one of the questions that somebody just recently submitted. Here, the context is HCI is not a popular research topic in my country, and I don't have HCI-related experience, though I'm a ninja reviewer for CSCW. Thank you for your service, our ninja reviewer, and be a nice ninja reviewer. Okay, and another question is, what specific skill sets are HCI professors looking for, and is it common to hire students with only traditional CS backgrounds? Does anybody want to take that one?
So I can comment on that a little bit. I did my undergrad from Bangladesh, and when I did that, and probably still now, very few universities have traditional HCI program, HCI courses. At least it didn't have when I was doing my undergrad. But I was always interested in the space broadly. So I was doing some individual projects. My undergrad thesis was related to privacy and security, but not usable privacy and security. So in my research statement of purpose, I talked about the general research skills I gained from my privacy and security project, but I also outlined some of the work I individually did based upon my own personal interest. Some of those ended up in posters in Grace Hopper celebration or some other places like that. So I believe my application expressed my general skill that I achieved from traditional computer science background, but enough signals that I was really interested in the field of human-computer interaction through my individual projects, some courses that I did in Coursera and other venues on human-centered design. So there were like additional signals to express my honest enthusiasm about the field. And that could be something that you can adopt as well.
Right. So it comes down to telling the personal story and of course, your engagement in, like, it seems like you had to find those opportunities. They were not directly like when you go to Stanford, they're just there. So it's not hard to take them, but you have to generate them. And we appreciate that. So you just need to emphasize this. I think that's a very good point. So here I'm gonna ask Yukang, did you want to throw anything into the discussion at this point?
Yeah, sure. I guess like because like HCI research is sometimes or often interdisciplinary, I guess like we can actually benefit a lot from like the expertise and the knowledge from different areas. For example, design, psychology, machine learning, or like security and privacy. I guess like Michael would agree with that. So if you can bring your own expertise with us, that's actually awesome. And also like I think it's necessary to have the fundamental technical skills or like the coding skills. And I'm also not saying like the folks from different backgrounds are not a good fit, but you either have the technical skills ready or you can pick them up very quickly during the PhD program. If you are not interested in coding or like implementing stuff, that could be a problem. So what I'm saying is like, I guess like as long as you have the basic or the fundamental skill set and you are willing to learn more, I don't see an issue that you don't have like very specific HCI research experience.
A quick clarification. I think it depends a little bit like which program. I think if you're entering a CS PhD program, then the expectations are probably there. And then, but in general, I would say it really comes down to the faculty, like what they are interested in. To be honest, for me, learning how to program is easy. That is not like, I'm not concerned about that. But if I want to work on something that requires really working with a specific user population, understanding maybe how to go about this carefully from an ethical perspective or a safety critical computing kind of like perspective, those are actually really hard skills to acquire. So whenever I felt like, okay, we needed to implement something, then maybe it takes a little longer, but you can pick it up. But like understanding, we had one student that was like, it felt like in the Matrix, downloaded how to do qualitative analysis in one afternoon, and then was already helping us going through some of the feedback that users provided, and so that's unusual that you can pick up a skill like that very quickly. So I want to end this block, but I want to throw in one important question on the application materials. Are there things that could be showstoppers? And one of the questions is actually related to this alignment one. So what if I really write this super aligned with, like, let's say Michael, but then this year Michael isn't recruiting, so there is a fear, a theme among the questions, which is like, I spent so much time on writing materials and really targeting a professor, and then it turns out they're not actually recruiting. How do I actually know that? And I don't have really good answers because the universities don't always maintain this very well, and even the faculty don't always know exactly whether they'll be admitting. So first of all, I would say on the fear side, I mean, you can reach out and ask whether faculty are admitting. You can also assume the younger they are, the more money they have. So somebody who just recently started a new tenure track, they just want to spend the money, and they are actually available. And so junior-ish, so new professors are really cool to work with. So all of them that I hear, very good. Then now I do want to ask this very specific question. Will making a very specific statement of research interest negatively impact the application? So for example, only a few faculty think I'll be a fit. It'll be a fit. And to be honest, we had one of those examples where somebody proposed a very specific user study with types of users nobody in the department has previously worked with. And the application fell between the cracks because we didn't know, is this just an example or are you determined to really work with this population? And we were concerned we don't have access to it, so it wouldn't be feasible. It would be a very tough start. And so the orientation, the faculty quickly oriented towards other candidates. So I would say my theme is to present things as examples of research that you are excited about, and maybe don't chase after super specific populations unless you already know that the faculty have previously worked with those. That's what I would say, but what do some of you think? Could there be a too specific statement, and could it be negatively impacting the success?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with what you just said, like don't be too specific, because or just the example you gave, if the student propose a very specific project, it's very likely that they will not end up doing that in grad school. So then I think it's both in when they write the material and also their actual expectations. So whether they just want to do that project to do the PhD, or they're just in generally interested in that area. So I think if there's a correct expectation, like the proper expectation, and the material reflect that properly, I don't think there will be a problem. Like you can definitely express your interest working in a number of faculty, and if you have reached out to them beforehand and you know they're recruiting and even interested in it, that would be even better. But you can, I think I have seen a lot of statement of purposes just list a bunch of faculty's name at the end of their statement, and then just very generally talk about these are my interests and I will be happy to work in other areas. I'm open to other directions as well. So just to try to be a little bit more flexible, and I think that's gonna kind of make it look nicer. But I don't think that's gonna be a showstopper. Like if I see a student that has a really good skill set, really good match, but didn't mention me or didn't mention related projects, I might still reach out if I think it's worth it. So I won't just look into the research interest that students said, because I personally know like 6 years ago when I applied for PhD, what the kind of project I wanted to do has changed a lot over this period of time. So I don't expect the student, unless they already have a lot of research experiences beforehand, and maybe they just want to work with that specific professor, and then maybe that's what they want to do. So it's really, I think, a personal choice here.
All right, anybody feel you want to add anything?
One thing I would like to add to Tianshi's point is you can also try to identify, as Tianshi mentioned, like, maybe you can mention 2 to 4 faculty. Do not mention everyone in the department, but a select few, and try to identify what's the commonality across what you are interested in, and the list of faculty. I was part of the PhD recruitment. I was able to review PhD applicants last cycle at Northeastern, and I know that we have a formal process where you mention which faculty you are interested in working with in your application portal and also your application material. What makes it useful is that there are hundreds and probably in some places thousands of applicants, but if you mention that gives a signal, and sometimes systems make it easier for the faculty to review that application. So sometimes it's useful. And the other thing that if you also kind of like find that commonality. So for example, if there's a student who mentioned my name and other faculty who do accessibility related research, we will have a general understanding that, okay, this student is interested in accessible technology. So instead of probably mentioning a very specific project, you can kind of give an idea of the general category of projects that you might be interested in working with, and try to connect it with 2 to 3 or 4 different faculties' work and experiences, just so that you are not specifically tied to only one person who may or may not recruit students this cycle.
Right, and there are a couple of benefits with listing multiple faculty. They could also team up, co-advise, share some of the financials, and so there's a few. We can have a quick block on quick things. Maybe you think about last-minute advice before we end the block on application materials. After that, I want to think a little bit more towards interviews, and then I want to open it up to other questions that maybe, since so many attended today. So on application materials. A couple of other things that are frequent questions. So I, for example, have multiple appointments, but my primary appointment is in the School of Information. I do encourage students to apply through the primary appointment, but not everybody knows that. So I do think, for example, at Michigan, it would be better to apply through School of Information and to Computer Science and Engineering. So some of us have multiple appointments. I mean, ultimately, it should be like the discipline where you want to have your PhD in. I would advertise, though, not sure whether anybody else here is in a School of Information. It's actually a really good place to be in, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And you can do technical work in HCII at Carnegie Mellon or in the School of Information. And so it really depends on the advisor. So if you can afford it, apply with the same faculty also through multiple streams. There are application fees, but it may sometimes increase, of course, your chances. And last thing, the computer science admission pool is way over 1,000. Not the admission pool, the application pool is way over 1,000 in computer science, and then the School of Information we have more than 300. So it's a little bit more manageable. You can think about what that means for like chances of your applications being visible and potentially positively reviewed as well. So I just wanted to give this advice. Any other last minute advice, things you think about? I'm going to call Sam and Karan. You two can think about anything, any common questions you often answer.
Yeah, one thing I would say is I received this question a lot for PhDs since it's a general application. They're like undergrads, master students, people with experience applying. So there isn't one yardstick, right? Like someone with undergrad has less time to build their profile than someone who has had more time, or like someone who pivots and like starts in a new field. So we take all that into consideration in the personal statement, or even sometimes in the research statement. So don't be too scared when you compare it to others and like, okay, I'm missing this, this, and this. It really depends on your story and which part or which point in your career you're at.
Right. And I've actually directly recruited out of undergraduate before. And so it's, I think in Europe, it's probably a little bit more expectation as a master's, but I think in the North America, yeah, the PhD students are pretty young. Sam, do you have anything?
I'll just mention that in general, this might vary by institution and person and department, but the best thing you can do is highlight the things about your application and yourself and your experience that make you a good fit for wherever you're applying and whomever you're applying to work with, rather than worrying about metrics or numbers or how you might compare to others. Sometimes that information is actually available. You know, you might learn that it's typical that a certain department will only look at your application if you have certain things on your CV or on your transcript. But once you get past that initial step, as Karan said, there's no one yardstick. Just show who you are and why you're a good fit, and that is genuinely the best signal that anyone reading your application is going to have.
Right. And I would say maybe another thing is letter writers. So obviously it is good if they can speak directly to a research experience and don't just know you from classes, but like one of the letter writers might know you from just a class project and can maybe speak about that. So like having a mix, I would go for people that have directly worked with you. So I've started the tendency to co-author some of these statements also with a PhD or a postdoc who has more directly worked with the student, just so that I basically write these recommendations to our colleagues. And so I would say, Sam, I have this really brilliant student here. I was very excited about your work. I think it's a good student, could work with you. And I would emphasize actually different things when I made a recommendation to Sam as opposed to Yukang, for example, because we also know like a little bit what the other people probably care about, at least we assume we know. And that actually brings us to our next smaller block. So application materials is really the main portion. Most of you care about this, but let's assume you are successful. Yay! So now it's coming to interviews. And so I'm curious for our faculty friends here, both in terms of maybe things you'd like to ask now, but also previous experiences when you were in interviews. So here's a set of questions. So for these interviews, what do you think is a good thing to prepare? Let's say they have an interview with one of you. Are there questions you'd like to ask students, or are there maybe questions you were asked in the past, and either for purposes of payback or because you thought it was a good question, you'd like to ask those questions now? So how do you think about interviews? Let's say I'll start with Maitraye. What would you say? What's a good thing to prepare for an interview? What is a question we can expect?
Yeah. So before interviews, I skim through, actually read through, not skim, the CVs, and I kind of ask students to describe the research experience they mention in their CV. In HCI, there are lots of research methods. You can be a quantitative person, a qualitative person, a mixed methods person. You can be great at system building. You can be interested in kind of more human-centered research. Personally, for me, I kind of look at the end-to-end pipeline. So my work involves, formative qualitative studies, but also involves system building and evaluation. So I try to understand, I do not expect that students will have expertise in all the different methods that I use, but I try to achieve an understanding of where their current skill sets fall into the work that I do, and where they're still lacking some skills or expertise, if they can indicate how they might be interested in learning those. So I generally ask questions around, describing their research experience and the kinds of research methods they enjoy, or the skill sets that they have learned in the past. I also ask questions around if they know what kind of advising style works best for them. I know some students like to be more hands-off, some likes more direct guidance, and knowing that beforehand, I believe helps me to kind of curate my advising relationship with the student. So if a student if a student knows that what kind of mentorship is more helpful for them, I also ask a question around that.
I like that. That's a very sophisticated answer, pretty complete. Do you have things you want to add to it, anybody?
Yeah, I can add one more on how to prepare the interviews. Maybe one tip that I learned from the failures, I guess, like if you want to know more, like better about the faculty's work, maybe read more recent publications than others, like because people may have different research interests or focus at different times. For example, I remember when I interviewed with like Michael, I referred to one of his like gesture prototyping paper, I guess, as a step project, which he didn't agree totally. So I guess, but I eventually got the visiting position anyway. So I guess like if you want to get yourself prepared with more recent publications, try to figure out what's the directions the faculty is really interested in and passionate about, other than like other papers.
Yeah, maybe the approach, and I'm not saying this is what you did, Yukang, but maybe the approach is not like, okay, I'm this person, so let me scan. In 2015, Micah had the same interest as me, so let's just talk about that. But rather like, okay, this person currently seems to care about some of these topics. You also don't know exactly what they're currently working on because it may not be published yet. And it's also okay to ask a professor, like, what are you currently working on? So like, bi-directional information exchange. But I do think it's better to try to understand why they are interviewing you. They may see some potential based on their current interests, and it's likely not something they have done 5 years ago. But I don't think it was that negative. Anyway, so what else? Tianshi, did you want to add anything? I see you unmuted.
Yes. So just want to build upon what Maitraye just said about tell me something about your research experiences, what you did in the past. I think that's a very classic question. Like everyone will be asked this question. So better like be very well prepared for it. And I think a common mistake I've seen a lot is the students usually get really excited about the details, but just don't talk about like the big picture. I really want to see not just the skill set or what exactly task that you did, but I also want to see they have some scientific thoughts, like understanding the big picture, the motivation, and what research gap is being addressed, and why this method is a good approach to tackle this problem. Even if this is not the project that they lead, but if like they understand the whole project, but not just like the specific task assigned to them, I think that's kind of differentiate between like maybe undergrad research assistant and a potential PhD student. So yeah, maybe can prepare some kind of slides or an elevator pitch just to quickly tell everyone that who are not familiar with the background of the project, like what is the big idea of the project and what is your contribution here. Yeah, that's kind of my
Well, I'm paying
small
attention to
tip here.
microphones. If you want to add anything, I'll just you can just do that. Yukang, you want to add anything?
Yeah, maybe on like what kinds of questions I'm interested in to ask. One thing is that sometimes after what is done is done, right? After you complete a project, I also want to see some kinds of reflections on what could be improved if you got a second time, or what is the limitations of that project that could be transferred into a future work or future project as well. Maybe that's something that I'm personally interested in.
Yeah, and there is also a lot of meta things going on. So for example, how you respond to critical questions, whether you become defensive, whether it becomes like a really nice discussion. There is, I wouldn't underestimate that these interviews are very important. They are also a probe a little bit into the potential future mentee advisor kind of like relationship. Of course, like I haven't had very heated discussions or anything like that, but I do think I do look for one opportunity to push the student a tiny bit, because I just think a PhD is not just all happiness and nobody's ever going to critique you. It's actually constant scientific discourse about your work and being challenged a lot. So it is important that I get a sense for how you would potentially deal with this criticism. Now, sometimes students take this the wrong way and think this is a bad advisor or like so negative. So but I would keep that in mind. If somebody challenges you in a way and it makes you uncomfortable, there is a good side to it. I mean, it's probably not what they intended, but it is something that it's also for you to experience and see. Well, if you do this for over 5 years now, is this going to be good? So there might be a more critical portion in an interview as well, and that might be by design. I just wanted to say that this could be by design. Doesn't mean that they hated your work. I also feel like oftentimes after I did some kind of like post-interview debrief, sometimes the perspective of the student is quite different from the perspective of the faculty. Sometimes my PhD students tell me things I've said in the past, and it always sounds terrible when they repeat that to me, but I felt like this is not what I meant. So in general, I think even after the interview, if you get an offer, there will be visit days and things like that. So that would be a very different environment to explore that potential relationship better. It is an interview. And it may contain, sometimes it's good bad cop good cop, bad cop when you get interviewed by two people. I've seen various strategies. So keep that in mind. Then I talked for a long time. Karan, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that one question that I usually ask is, why do you want to do a PhD? And I think like a lot of people have some generic answer, but if you really have a good answer, or like sort of even if you don't have an answer, it's okay to say why, what were your motivations that made you apply for like something that takes, I don't know, 5 to 7 years of your life and grinding away in a lab. I think that's sort of an important thing for a faculty to understand what's the life decision behind it and what do you want out of it, so that we can see if we can give that to you or build the right support system to enable you for success. And another thing I wanted to add was, a lot of times I get students from not from HCI. A lot of time they are in computer vision, machine learning, perception. And at that point, it's more about finding skills and alignment. So what are your skills that you learned in the past that will transfer over to some of the research that you want to do? And hopefully that research will be the person that you're talking with, if you're interested in them. How does that pertain to their domain expertise and their vision of research?
Right. Maybe one more thing on preparing slides. I think when you do that, be sure that you are flexible to fast forward or like insert, go deeper if somebody, the slides are often, it's unlikely that you will give a presentation and then there will be questions at the end. The slides often then become working material in these discussions. And so aim for like very flexible. So it's better, I brought a video of my prototype and I have a little bit of the design process slide here, but I don't come with this is my paper presentation slides. So aim for something small in terms of material and bring it to a discussion and critique session, essentially, because you want to discuss what could be future research directions, what could we work on together, what were the limitations. So because I have seen very rehearsed slide presentations always have a negative influence on me, because like I like it more the honesty, the out of the spontaneous. Is this a researcher? Can we have a cool discussion? So you can over prep, at least for Michael sometimes. But anyway, so I just wanted to give some of these edge case notes. Anything else you want to add, Karan?
Yeah, I just quickly want to add
Maitraye.
on the slide thing. That seems to be a recent trend. I didn't see that before. When in interviews people come with slides, one thing I would say is you only have finite time, and to echo Michael's point, like you don't want to regurgitate your research statement, which we have already most probably read, right? So it sometimes does detract away from interesting conversations if you just take up too much time on slides.
I just wanted to echo the points and say that the faculty might also have a set of questions that they want to ask and want to engage in conversation with you. So if you, I would say before putting up the slide, kind of like mention that you have the slide that you have prepared and wait for them to say that, okay, we can spend a couple of minutes to go through your slides, instead of just putting it, because it might take away time that they have set apart for some of the questions they want to ask you.
Right, so being flexible. Cool. All right, perfect. Then did we cover, was there like a question? I think we covered some questions that you'd like to ask, so that's cool. So then, okay, so for the last 10 minutes, I suggest we'll, actually, I'll just keep the recording going, but we will answer questions from the audience. So if you don't want to ask questions while this is being recorded, you can add them to the document. I still spend some time on the document with my friends here, but so let's open the floor for other questions. I think we have a Q&A system. We probably also have a chat, but I haven't seen anything in either at the moment. So I hope this is working. If you have questions, you can probably also just unmute yourself, so we can give this a try. Is there a question from any of you? You can ask it generally, or also, of course, ask a specific faculty to answer a question. I'm like staring at these windows, but they're like empty. Oh, there is one. Okay, so the question is, do you think it's a good idea to highlight contents in the personal statement, like using bold text for key information? That's a good one to get started. Does anybody, I mean, from an accessibility perspective and parsing perspective, I think it's a good idea. Could this ever be a bad idea? Does anybody have specific thoughts on this one?
I feel like it could be a bad idea only if you overdo it. Like in the essence of making bold, you bold a lot of things where it loses its purpose. Otherwise, I would, for example, bold the name of the faculty that you want to work with. That might be a very easy to skim. Your particular research interest topic, or anything else that you want to really highlight, but not overdo it.
All right, cool. That covers that. Macarena is asking, how should we go about contacting professors' labs of interest before and also after applying? Any advice there? One note I have is, I wouldn't send reminders every day. So this is one thing. First of all, asking, stop sending email. No, just give a little bit of time. That's one important thing to note. Also, then make it specific. So if it's like some super generic, I feel like for example, I wouldn't describe myself as a machine learning person, and yet everybody writes these messages to me as if I was a leader in machine learning, and I'm not. I mean, it's nice, of course, but no. So a little bit of more specific. This is the detail about. This is some advice on what to put in the messages, but maybe the question is also like about timing. When is a good time? And how do some of you think about this? Karan, did you want to add?
Yeah, I would say do not get discouraged by a lack of response before applying or before acceptance from a faculty, just because there are a lot of emails. Sometimes these emails just slip through the crack. Faculties do not have time to reply to each and every email. Still apply if there is a strong interest. And usually you'll have a much higher chance of getting a reply if you've already been admitted. It's a much higher chance. There'll be a more engaging conversation, because then they've most probably already looked at your materials if there is alignment, and they also want to get you as a student if the department has admitted you.
So what I say to my students is like they probably have like one or two dream places they really think, and for those I would write an email after I have applied, just because at that point it's in the system. The professor, any time they spend is potentially valuable. But before application deadlines, like the amount of time you spend on these emails is just very small. Getting so many, most of them are like, are you recruiting, or like a little bit off topic, and so then you get all these emails and then they fall between the cracks. So I like it more like, okay, I've applied. I would really be excited about working on this topic. Please take a look at my application. And then I do appreciate also sometimes an update. So on the after applying, so somebody sent me a personal update. So like a poster got accepted, and it was really nice to celebrate with them. And and so like if there are like actual updates, or your perspective has changed in any way, or you had this new idea, hey, we could work on this, what do you think? Then maybe it makes sense to send an update afterwards. I'm probably sure I haven't covered like all the good tips. Does anybody feel like you want to add anything on we have a new questions as well, but anything on how to go about contacting?
So some people do put on their website, or perhaps their Twitter or their Medium, their perspective on being contacted before and after applying by prospective students. And some departments even have clauses about their recommendations. I see it less in CS and more in other disciplines. But if you have a specific person and you're debating whether or not to reach out to them, you might not find anything, but it's certainly worth checking their web presence to see if they have information to the questions in response to the questions you might ask, like, are they recruiting, what projects do they have funding for, and B, guidelines about contacting them at different stages of the application process. And if they have those guidelines, definitely follow them.
I would like to add one thing. Sending 200 generic emails is always a bad idea than sending 20 well-formulated emails. You may not still hear back from the faculty because they get a lot of emails, but your chances, your probability of getting a response, if you have done the prior research on the particular faculty's interest and you have done, a good job at making that connection, why you are interested in working with them, and then send an email, that definitely increases your likelihood of getting a response. And it's something like when you send 200 emails, it makes it more likely to make very rookie mistakes, like mentioning a faculty with a different faculty's name, and those can really hurt your chances. I have had, so I would definitely discourage sending 200 emails or 500 emails.
That's good. Would it be good to reach out to a potential PI at a school and ask them about their own PhD or postdoc experience at another school, especially if your research interests align with both schools and are looking to apply to those schools? So I will say in general, it's always good to get opinions on previous experiences. I wonder, this is probably more like for the interview / making decision time. This is probably less relevant for application time, because I always am saying that the application material time is when you try to generate options and you want to generate potentially as many options as you can. And this question seems to be more for like later for decision making, and I think there it's important to talk to your advisors about some of their perspectives, but maybe also peers or even people who have previously been there. So that's how I would say to that one. I will go to the next question. So my prospective research area for which I will be applying is HCI and AR/VR. Specific to this area, to faculty focused traditional skills and experiences such as computer graphics, 3D vision, statistics, etc., and the application materials, or more tool-based skills such as having knowledge and experience with Unity, Unreal Engine, and user study experiences. So Yukang and Karan, I'm thinking you could be good to take this one. What's your perspective?
Karan, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I focus on skills rather than tools, because tools can change basically. Like just look at any tooling now, it's not the same that what we used or I used at the start of the PhD. And the other sort of thing is when you look at skills, if you are good in a skill, for example, if you're good in graphics, most probably you have used some tools to get good at that. So that is implicitly covered in it, at least for me.
Right.
Yeah, I really agree. And also, like, other than the tools or the skills, I'm also interested to know what kind of research topics you are more passionate about, other than the tools you use to solve the question. Like you can emphasize on more on why I need this tool, what it is for, and what the questions I'm really addressing with that.
Cool. All right, Maitraye, we have a question that is targeted at you, but maybe it applies to several people. Thank you all for your valuable advice. This might be a very specific question to Maitraye. I know students can mention 2 to 3 faculty members when applying. I was wondering, will your department suggest to admit students in co-advising style or not, since this might be different for different unis and departments? So basically, the question, one way to interpret the question, if I mention multiple faculty, does that immediately mean co-advising, or how likely is the co-advising situation?
Based on my experience from last year and in general, I do not think the department suggests co-advising. It depends on the faculty. So when you mention multiple faculty members' name, maybe one or maybe one or more of them might be interested in looking into your application, and then faculty actually discusses between each other. Like if there are multiple faculty who are interested in admitting you, they discuss if they want to kind of propose a co-advising offer, or if one of them is interested in recruiting you as their sole PhD student. So department does not kind of like dictate that, or if you mention multiple faculty members' name, it does not automatically mean that you will be selected for a co-advising situation.
Okay, cool. I will say that at UMSI, sometimes there are financial incentives for co-advising, for example, shared financial responsibility. And then there's also the intellectual benefit of co-advising. But I will also say it can also create additional issues. So you will probably get, again, different programs have different rules how they admit. But for example, here it would be stating primary advisor is the secondary advisor or backup advisor is that, or like you're admitted under co-advising, this is the offer. Usually there is not so much you can discuss and negotiate. This is the offer. However, many programs have also built in this idea that you can potentially drop a co-advisor. You can even drop your main advisor, and there should be ways to find it around. It usually results this is not an easy situation to deal with, so better to go through somebody's feelings will always get hurt, but the programs have some flexibility there. So we're entering the 1201. We're going to take so some of you, does anybody have to run? Were you tenure track faculty who schedule meeting after meeting?
I have to run, unfortunately. I am not a tenure track faculty. So I have to go, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, then at this point, I will just say thank you all for joining me, Karan, Sam, Yukang, Maitraye, and Tianshi. And if some of you still want to go through some of these questions, we have 2 more questions. But if those of you who need to leave, thanks again. This was fun. And thanks for your answers. Very helpful.
See you all, folks. And those in the audience, looking forward to your potential applications. See you. Bye.
Right. Bye. So there is one question here from Tom. I feel like highlighting a concrete idea from my own statement of purpose should help. I have plenty ideas, but should I present a more detailed solution or design, but this could narrow it down, or rather show a wide range, maybe 2 to 3 of my capabilities or ideas, indicating more potential of me? This is exactly the trade-off you need to make. How would you answer this? Anybody?
So I think something important in considering this trade-off is actually comes down to the way it's written. You only have so much space to articulate your ideas. And if you're giving 2 to 3 ideas, but treating them as though you have more space and you sort of get into a little bit of the explanation, but it then is hard to really, for the reader to devote attention and understanding to what you've said, it might look a little chaotic. On the other hand, if you only present one idea and you are very brief, then it might leave the person evaluating your application wondering if that's all that you were thinking, whereas you might have actually been thinking a lot more deeply about it and just not written it up. So with so limited space, it's not the only thing that goes into the piece that you're writing, right? This particular solution that you're thinking of, or 2 or 3 solutions. I would make sure that whichever one you pick, it's written in a way that it is clear what the purpose of your presentation of that solution is. So I wouldn't give 2 or 3 in a laundry list. I would make sure you frame it as, I've been thinking about this, and I have a couple of ideas for how we might solve this. Here are some examples. Conversely, if there's one that you've thought more deeply about, you might say, here's the lines along which I'm thinking right now, but I'm open to other potential solutions. So I guess the short explanation of everything I just said is presentation is really important in this small space where you're potentially coming up with new research ideas. Either one might be okay, but it's going to need to be clear what the purpose of whichever route you choose is. I would personally probably be slightly more inclined to think better of one idea that's clearly described in several sentences, maybe with allusions to the possibility of other solutions, than with several, because that shows depth of thought and critical thinking, and that you've been paying attention to this for enough time to think through a solution.
Right. And I would also say that I extract more signal out of work that has been done rather than that future idea. That to me is not is not super important in these statements. It's really the hard. This is the thing where that's easier to get wrong because it may lead to misalignment. It may lead to ambiguity. So I would spend more time explaining your skills, how you acquired your interest, like your profile as a researcher, and maybe how you want to shape and develop. And then so this is the bulk, and then there is this usually a portion at the end where students will speak to potential with individual faculty, and maybe there you could highlight some of the, but I wouldn't write a research or a statement of purpose where the core thing is like a new idea that you haven't really worked on, and it's a very risky, overall a very risky kind of, like I don't learn enough about your previous experience, and if that one idea is not compelling, to be honest, it's also very, very difficult to have an interesting research idea. It's interesting. I mean, interesting is a very big word for alignment reasons, for like novelty, significance, impact, kind of like it's really difficult to nail this. So focus more on the skills and your research profile rather than throwing out lots of ideas. It's very easy to throw out lots of ideas actually, but getting the good ones is hard. So that's I would say answers this. So then thank you all for staying a little longer, and hope to see you at future conference. Some of you were at Assets, I think, Maitraye. So I'm at WIST in a few. Actually, I'm there on Sunday, so I may see you, Yukang. Sam is and Tianshi, is WIST a conference you go to? No. Okay.
Yeah, I will go this time, but yeah.
Well, it would be good to see you there, and hope Sam and Maitraye, I catch you some other time. So thanks all for coming, and I will upload this soon, and have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mikkel.
Thank you.